Hey everybody, it's Jim, and it is of course Amadeus. And Amadeus, it's this is a big day. I mean, it's opening day for the Major League Soccer, and you know we'll see how things play out. Now, as when we last left them, of course Lionel Messi had just gotten to Inter Miami and had some fun, but they didn't even make the playoffs. This year, it should be different.
Yeah, definitely should be different for them this year. Obviously, when Lionel Messi got to the team last year, they were pretty much last in the league,
Hmm.
and it was going to be pretty hard to make a run, even to trickle into one of those last playoff spot or the play-in
Hmm.
spot now, because I believe it's nine places. But yeah, this is going to be a completely different team. Obviously, the big thing is they get to start from the beginning of the season now,
Hmm.
so that'll be huge because they're not starting with that handicap when he got there, being one of the worst teams in the league, and they've done nothing but add. Obviously, they brought in a lot of Messi's buddies last season, like Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, but now they got they injected some life into that attack with Messi, as he'll be playing with Luis Suarez tonight, a longtime friend from their days on Barcelona. And yeah, Luis Suarez, I mean, as old as he is, he's coming off a great season for Gremio in the Brazilian league last season. And yeah, he came over in the winter transfer window. So obviously, we haven't seen him in this lineup, but he knows how to play with Messi. And he's coming off a great season in Brazil for the age that he's at. So definitely can only improve this attack for sure.
Well, back in the day, as we do, when I was involved with the NASL, and then the Cosmos had Quinalia and Pele, Franz Beckenbauer. It was an all-star team, and there were also, Johan Cruyff was in the league. There's some quality players in the league, and what they did, which I'm sure Miami is going to do, they surround them with good young talent, so they don't have to run up and down, the pitch all night long. They can just pick their spots. So it's kind of like for them. I'm talking about Messi and Suarez and those guys. Uh, they can go at three-quarter speed or at half speed, and it's not a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And one player I think is going to make a huge impact in this midfield for Miami is another newly acquired player, but this
Mhm.
time it's not a longtime Messi friend. This time it's just what you described. A young American player. They picked him up from I forget what team he was on last year. He might have been on Columbus, or it was another MLS team, but Julian Gressel, I think, is going to make a big impact on this
Mhm.
in this Miami midfield for sure.
Well, and they Miami didn't have a bad, um, you know, back half in from defense, and they got some pretty good goalkeeping there in toward the end of the season.
Yeah, and you got to remember, right? Like, so you can't judge them on really what they did in the season. Obviously, when he got to the
Yeah.
team, they're in last place, but you can tell what they're going to be just by the fact that they went and won the league's cup shortly after he arrived, and that was a tournament with much stronger Mexican clubs as well.
Hmm.
Obviously, a Mexican club being the defending Concacaf Champions League champions. So
Hmm.
definitely, you had to go up against some stronger Mexican clubs there for sure, and they still came away with the League's Cup, and they even made a bit of a run in the U.S. Open Cup. They didn't win the thing, but I believe they made it to the semis before getting
Hmm.
knocked out. So definitely, they made a deep run when they weren't a good team. So that was huge for them. I think just looking at the way they played in those cup matches, this should be a very good team this year.
You know, I, Something that happened, uh, you know, after last season and now up to this season, and that's Apple TV has now, you know, doubled almost their subscriber base. So, say what you will, as many have, about Major League Soccer, it actually has become a, people are purchasing the Apple plan so that they can watch all their favorite teams. And so failing the schedule snafu that you and I are constantly talking about, this it looks like the league is on the upswing.
Yeah, well, it's always going to help since Apple has the international rights, and
Right.
with Messi, you're getting an international star, right? He played
Sure.
a large majority of his career for big clubs in Europe,
Mhm.
but he's from obviously South America, and then
Right.
now he's playing in the North American League. So right there, you got three continents invested. And
Right.
obviously, him just being Messi, he'll draw people from Asia and Australia and things like that just to watch him. So even if you pick up some of those viewership, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's always going to be a good thing for Apple. I wish they would fix the schedule. It doesn't. We're not off to a good start here. I'm just going to say with the fact
Mhm.
that opening night is on Wednesday and we don't have another game till Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
Just gonna put it out there. Not off to a good start with the scheduling, but I'm excited for the MLS this season. I was telling you behind the scenes that
Mhm.
if you go to BigAl.com, you can actually find I have 2 articles posted under my name. Just go to the Handicappers Amedeus and you'll find my articles there. And I have one for the Eastern Conference,
Mhm.
who's going to win the Eastern Conference of the MLS, and one for the Western Conference this year. And I like this Miami team. They're plus 137. It's not a lot to win the Eastern Conference, but I think they'll be the best team by a long shot in this league. So the fact that you're getting plus money on it at all at plus 137, I think it's good value on Miami to
Mhm.
win the Eastern Conference. And on the Western side, I really think Seattle at plus 500 has a lot of value. Seattle was one of the better teams in the league last year. I believe they were second in the Western Conference. And they had one of the best defenses in the MLS. I believe they only gave up 32 goals in their
Mhm.
34 matches. So definitely, that's something strong. And Seattle is a team that they've had history as a decorated MLS club the past decade. They've won a few from 2016 to 2019. I believe they won 2 in that span. They're a very decorated team. And, they haven't been great. Last year, there was a big improvement from the year before. But I think with this team, right, they have a lot of experienced veterans. And now, last year they brought in a lot of young players. Those players performed well. I think they're only going to improve. It helps that they have that strong defense to lean on because it's their attack that really needs to improve this season. And I think it's also going to help with Carlos Vela gone from LAFC because it's not just him that left. Quite a few players left. Obviously, LAFC, they're the favorite to win the West right now, and
Mhm.
they do have a talented team. But this team is nothing like the one we've seen from LA the past few years. And I think the LAFC dynasty is over until they really, go acquire another star.
Well, and to your point about Seattle, um, yeah, I just mentioned the NASL. Seattle always had a tremendous following from a soccer standpoint. The place was almost, for the most part, sold out, and their rival, was the Whitecaps from up in Vancouver, and so it was. I just it's one of those soccer towns. I mean, it is Seattle is a soccer town, and they come out and they support their team, and win or lose. But as you said, more often than not, the Sounders have had a solid team that that can make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm expecting big things from this team this year. I think they injected a lot of young talent into their attack to go with those veterans they have. And like I said, they have that strong defense to lean on. So this is going to be a force in the West for sure. They were already, second best last year. They actually beat LAFC, and somehow LAFC is favored. But I think the LAFC dynasty is over. And you can even tell the way the team played. Really, they wanted to win that CONCACAF Champions League last year,
Hmm.
and it's almost like their domination in the MLS they're getting bored with. And now, the key players on that team are gone. And we saw it last year after they lost to Leon in the CONCACAF Champions League final. They went on that huge slump where they just couldn't win a game. And that was because they didn't win the competition they wanted to win. So you got to think, motivation for those lingering players that stayed. The motivation is still a question mark for me, just because they've been so dominant in the league so long and they've had so much success. They're almost bored with the MLS. So that's why I think I definitely think the LAFC dynasty is over. And I think Seattle is the team to beat in the West this year.
Now, I got a nice email from the Orlando SC fans telling me that don't forget us. We think we can play on the same level as Miami. So they're starting to get a little in-state smack talk going on here between the Orlando fans and the Miami fans, and that should be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, well, I love that. We talked a lot about this rivalry last year, how you could really build the Orlando. Orlando had a great team last year. I actually picked them to go to the MLS Cup from the Eastern side when the playoffs started last year. I thought it really helped that they had the best away record in the entire MLS. So that's something that's definitely going to work in their favor this year. Orlando is a very good team. I don't think they're the best in the Eastern Conference. But don't you worry, Orlando. I haven't forgot about you. You'll definitely be somewhere in a playoff spot, probably in the top 4, I would think. Just considering, again, if you keep up, it's hard to keep up away from, but if you continue to churn out points away from home like you did last year, then Orlando is going to be a very dangerous team in the East.
Well, you still have Duncan McGuire. They didn't have any trouble scoring points. The problem with Orlando that when I saw them play was mental lapses. I mean, just they would play like balls to the wall, and then have a 5-minute siesta, and that's usually when they had problems.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can't be switching off like that. That's a huge thing. Right. And as you said, it's all a mentality aspect, which is something they can definitely work on this year. Right. So you got to keep up that away form. I would like to see they were good at home, but I'd like to see a bit better performance at home. But absolutely, I still think Orlando is a dangerous team. So don't worry, Orlando City fans, just because I think Inter Miami is the best in the Eastern Conference doesn't mean I've forgotten about you. You're still there. You're still a good team, and I expect you to make the playoffs this year.
Doesn't mean you don't get love from there. So
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say you're not supporter shield quality this season, but that doesn't mean you're not MLS Cup quality, because we know with the playoff format, anything can happen once you get there.
That's for sure, and usually does. We joked about Real Salt Lake last year being the team that won, on the road, but couldn't win at home. What are your thoughts about that team this year? I mean, I don't think anybody thinks they're going to win the title, but do you expect that they'll find some home cooking as a good thing coming into this season?
Yeah, I'm not expecting, great things from Salt Lake. Right. They were about middle of the pack last season. I think they'll probably be, again, middle of the pack. They should make the playoffs, maybe on the lower end of the Western Conference, probably like, the bottom half of playoff spots, the lower seeds. But I think, again, they were an interesting one last year, just because of they had the altitude advantage at home, and they were so cold there. Yet they would win games as huge underdogs on the road. So I mean, they definitely have that going for them in this match specifically. They've been a pretty good road team, but yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, right? I think Salt Lake, like I said, I think they'll be a middle of the pack team. I don't expect too much improvement. Really, where they need to improve is playing at home, because they performed so well on the road, and obviously, there were no Orlando on the road, and they weren't this
Right.
amazing road team, right? But it's tough to win games on the road in any league. So
Sure.
the home records are always going to look better than the road records, right?
Mhm.
And you can look at any league in Europe too, and apply this. Other than like the Real Madrids and that, you're not going to get teams with overwhelming like strong away records.
Mhm.
Even the Real Madrids of the world, like they'll tend to lose or draw a majority of those games away from
Mhm.
home. So that's where you get right. You got to look at maybe a record just a few games above 500 could be a very good road record, especially with the points
Mhm.
you pick up. So I think that's one thing where Salt Lake can improve is their home form, because had they played better at home last year, they might have been a much better team and finished in a higher seed. So that's a big thing I think we need to see from Salt Lake this year.
Right. Now, there's been over the past few years a number of expansion franchises. Normally you don't like to see that because it basically waters down the talent in the league. Just without necessarily naming teams, how many legitimate contenders per conference do you have out in the West? Is there 4 or 5? Same thing in the East.
Yeah, so legitimate contenders, are you talking for the Supporter Shield or for the MLS Cup? Because
I would say
it will
either
change
or.
my answer.
All right, well then give me both.
All right, so if we're talking the Supporter Shield, or not even necessarily Supporter Shield. If we're just talking, winning the conferences regular season wise, that's what I wrote my articles about. So
Mhm.
obviously, I think Miami and Seattle. I think the West is a little more open than the East is. I kind of think Miami's gonna run away and really lock down the Eastern Conference. I think it's gonna be a race for second place in that one. And
Mhm.
I definitely think the Western Conference is more open for a team to win. As we saw last year, the expansion team, speaking of expansion teams, St. Louis was the team that won the Western Conference and
Right.
then completely fizzled out in the first round of the playoffs. So that would be on that end. Now, if we're talking MLS Cup winners, then I think the landscape changes a bit, because as we talked about, the playoff format, anything can happen. As we saw St. Louis, for example, last year, so dominant during the regular season, fizzled out in the first year. And that's where I think these teams like Seattle, really have that experience on their side. Obviously, Columbus, as the defending champions, are going to have that experience as well. So personally, I think the Eastern Conference is a little stronger than the Western Conference this year with the teams. So if we're going for MLS Cup, to answer your question, I
Mhm.
think Miami, Orlando, Columbus, Cincinnati. I think these are all real contenders for the MLS Cup. Whereas in the West, you know, other than really Seattle, you could say LA. The only thing is, I don't really know what LA is going to be. I think this dynasty's over. I still think they'll be a good team, but I got to see it first from them. They did lose quite a bit of key talent. But yeah, like the Western Conference, the top 4 teams in the West right now to win the Western Conference is LA, Seattle, and then Houston and the Galaxy. And the Galaxy were one of the worst teams in the league last season. So that alone should tell you, just by the odds, the Western Conference is not very strong when you have Houston and the Galaxy as your third and fourth team to win the Western Conference. And I'm not saying, we've seen drastic improvement. LA Galaxy very well could be a playoff team this year.
Mhm.
I didn't see enough in their transfers to really, you know, turn this team around 180 from the season they had last year, but it could happen. It could happen. Houston was a very good team last year, but at home they were a very good team. On the road, they were a completely different story. They were one of the worst road teams in the MLS. So, when I see things like that, I think it's very evident that the Eastern Conference is stronger than the Western Conference this year. And frankly, if it's not Seattle winning the MLS Cup, I don't
Mhm.
see a Western team winning it this year.
Interesting. And so it should be another good season for the MLS as they continue to grow. So not a bad, not a bad thing. Do you have any? I know that you have the favorites. Is there anybody, and without giving away any of your picks, is there any, dark horses? Are there some teams you want to watch that are kind of lurking on the outside?
Yeah, well, Columbus, I think, is a dark horse just because,
Hmm.
they're Miami's like plus 275. They're a large favorite. Columbus is the next team at plus 800. If anything, you know, Columbus is the defending champion. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year, but they very well could be. They haven't made too many changes to their lineup, so they're a bit of a dark horse. I think Seattle's a massive dark horse to win the MLS Cup. You can get them at plus 1,600 right now. And like I said, LAFC's plus 800. They're the first Western team on the list. So I'll give you the list here. It goes
Hmm.
Miami at plus 275. It goes Columbus at plus 800. LAFC at plus 800, Cincinnati plus 12, Philadelphia plus 12, New York Red Bulls plus 14, and then Seattle at plus 1,600. So you can see already it's a bit Eastern dominated. Even after Seattle, we've only had LA and Seattle as the only two Western teams in that list. After Seattle, it's Orlando, Atlanta. So two of the first nine favorites to win the MLS Cup this year are Eastern or sorry, our Western teams, only two of the nine. So that's part of the reason why I think the Eastern Conference is stronger. But yeah, I would definitely think, Seattle, I think, is going to be a force this year. So plus 1,600 is a great uh, price on them. I really don't see a team in the West competing. And even if they don't win the West,
Hmm.
they're gonna be a top four team in the West. They're gonna have a high seed in the playoff, and they're gonna do damage when they get to the playoffs with that experience they have on their side. So definitely, I think Seattle at plus 1,600 might be the best dark horse for the MLS Cup on the board.
There you go. There you go, folks. You got a freebie on that one. Um, you know how you and I we're going to downshift just for a second here over to college football, which actually will become pro football here in a second. Uh, Joe Klatt, who is the draft maven for Fox, put out a his top five quarterbacks in order, and I don't think that either of us are surprised um, by the number one guy on the list, and that's Caleb Williams. I mean, he's not our number one guy, but he
Let me
seems to
just
be
roll
everybody
my
else.
eyes here. Like,
It's like maybe I did miss something there. It's possible, and they keep and this I don't quite get. They keep putting him in the same you know Patrick Mahomes feel. It's like okay,
he's a
I
Josh Rosen at best.
yeah I don't know. Number two is Drake May from North Carolina. Again, I have no idea.
He's another one, right? Like, there's always that one name from like a mediocre team that
Yeah.
gets like catapulted. This is your third best quarterback in the
Mm.
draft by far. He had a great offense. The team didn't play defense, but that's not his fault. He's got huge hands and a massive jump span. It's like,
He's
okay.
got that cannon arm. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Uh,
okay.
yeah. Here's the thing on this one. Who did he play other than Florida State? Was the
Nobody.
ACC that good that Drake May is your guy? And they're comparing him to Josh Allen. Um, maybe I don't know, but I just I didn't see it. I must have I must have missed something.
Yeah.
Now the third one on his list is actually one who I respect and would push much further. I'd push him ahead of the other two, and that's the guy who won the Heisman from LSU, Jaden Daniels. I mean, Jaden Daniels looked to me, like a Lamar Jackson-esque type quarterback. If that's the kind of guy you want running your offense, then Jaden Daniels is your man.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's probably the best quarterback in the draft class by far, and he's a guy actually. Rye Cape, good friend of the show, Rye Cape. He was all over
Absolutely.
Jaden Daniels from the start of the season. He was calling this kid the best quarterback in America. So, high praise from Rye Cape, high praise from you and I. I
Hmm.
mean, this guy's the number one in the draft for sure.
Well, he's the most athletic, and
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing in quarterbacking these days. Fourth on his list is one of our favorites, Michael Penix Jr. out of
Yep.
Washington, and you know, you could, I think you could make an argument to put him right behind Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, definitely. Those number one and number two right there.
Right, and it really just depends, frankly, on what kind of offense you want to run. If you want to run
Yeah.
traditional pocket passing offense, then Michael Penix is your guy. If you want to run, RPO type offense, then Jaden Daniels is your guy.
Yeah. The only thing with Penix is I could see his injury riddled career pushing him down a bit.
Yeah, no, you're right. And his size,
Yeah,
he's not a big
but
guy.
I totally agree with you. He's definitely put him above Caleb Williams and Drake May.
Mhm. Well, now here's the thing that a guy who we've spoken of many times, who just doesn't seem to pop up on a lot of radar screens, and that's Michigan's quarterback JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, not too many are talking about him. I don't know. I don't know what
All
he's
he
going to
did
be.
was win the national championship, so
I know he won the national championship, and he was a big reason. Actually, I will say he was like a Brock Purdy in the sense where
right.
you could noticeably tell the difference in the offense when he was put in versus Cade McNamara. So I will give him that definitely. I don't know. I don't know how he's going to be as an NFL quarterback, but
Uh-huh.
we'll see. We'll see if someone takes him. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that I brought him up, which of course was the number 5 on Joe's list, is that you know sometimes when your team wins and it's not an offensive juggernaut, but that you get the job done. Um, those are the kind of quarterbacks who come out and surprise people. I mean, does it happen often? No, but it does happen. And you use the Brock Purdy, analogy. I don't think a lot of people were looking at Iowa State and going, "Oh yeah, that's where we go get a quarterback."
Yeah, and
And
that's the thing, right? Like
yeah,
you could see in the results when he took over the offense for Jimmy Garoppolo.
mhm,
Yeah, you can point out all these flaws and mistakes that he's been making. Oh, that he missed a wide receiver, didn't even look his way. You got to remember though, he's in his second season,
right.
and yeah. So again, one of those things where JJ McCarthy. Yeah, they didn't have the stellar offense that was putting up a ton of points every game. But you also got to remember it was a very slow paced offense because they love to run the ball. And they didn't really, leave it up to McCarthy to sling it around. But when he did, he was very good at it. And there was a noticeable difference between him and McNamara running the offense. So I think that definitely does speak volumes in his favor.
Cool. I mean, we'll see. It's coming. The draft will be coming up. College basketball last night. UConn, got beat by Creighton. So it was. I don't think it doesn't diminish in my mind anything that UConn has done this year. It just proves that the Big East has some teams that can play basketball.
Yeah, look, it was the classic, let down spot off the Marquette win. And it's not like they lost to DePaul, right? As you said,
Right.
Creighton's a good team, talking about a ranked team. And let's be honest, when you're 24-2, you're bound to lose another game. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna win. You can't win every game. That's the thing,
Right.
right? You really can't win every game. And that could have been a much needed loss for them. It came right at the right time, right at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the season, and now maybe they rip off a huge run, win the conference tournament, and take that take another huge win streak into the NCAA tournament. So
absolutely. So it's one of those things. And speaking of that, we've got USF on the road tonight in San Antonio to face the Roadrunners of UTSA, and it's a tip-off at 8 o'clock Eastern time. If you can listen to the game, by the way, for free on TuneIn Radio. If you get the TuneIn Radio app on your phone, which is easily accessible, you can get what's called Bulls Unlimited, and Bulls Unlimited is a 24/7, radio, audio channel that talks about all of the things having to do with the University of South Florida football, basketball, baseball, pretty much everything. So it's free, and you can download it on the TuneIn app, and it's Bulls Unlimited. So if you want to listen to the game tonight, you can do it for free no matter where you are. So they take their win streak into San Antonio, which you and I spoke about yesterday, has all the indicators of a trap game.
Yeah, absolutely. We touched on this a bit yesterday, but just like UConn, this is that classic letdown spot. You had the huge win over FAU at home in the sold-out building. Don't let yourself get caught in this spot now on the road. Yes, UTSA is a bad team in the conference, but that's what makes it an even bigger trap game, is the fact that you could overlook this team. And, my message to South Florida is just don't be satisfied with yourself. The job is not done yet. The job is not done until we are in April and you're holding the national championship in your hands. That is when the job is done. And you just gotta keep reminding yourself, right? Like, yes, that was a great win against FAU. Celebrate that win, pat yourself on the back, but you celebrate that win on when it happened on Sunday. Once comes Monday, you shelf that like it's just any other win, and you move on to the next team. Because I've talked a lot about how every single game on your schedule, left on your schedule, is a winnable game. But that doesn't mean you're going to win them all. Yes, you are the best team in the conference, but don't start overlooking teams, all right? And don't get too big of a head for yourself, because that's when bad things start to happen. You have to remember that, yes, every game on the schedule is winnable because we are the best team, but there are a lot of good teams in the conference that can beat you, and it's only if you allow them to beat you. So what's it going to be, right? Don't allow them to beat you. And frankly, if you think you won people over with that FAU win, first of all, it'll mean nothing if you lose this game. But second of all, disrespect is still real, because Vegas put you at a 7.5-point favorite last night. And I woke up this morning to the line being at 5.5, which means the overnight money all came in on UTSA. They like the trap. People think you're going to lose this game. So that's what you just got to remember, right? The job is not done. We don't overlook any teams. Are you going to allow another team to beat you this year? That's the thing. I think every game is winnable for this team. And frankly, I think this is a game, again, when I see the line was 7.5 and the money brought it down to 5.5, I think this is a game they can still win by double digits. So, last time I said something like that, I said I think they would win by 12. I think it was their who was it? I think against Tulsa. Not 100% sure which game it was. It was on the road though, or no, not on the road. I think it was at home to Tulsa, and it was. I said they were good to win that game by 12 when they were an 8.5-point favorite. They went and won up to me and won the game by 19, and that's what I'd like to see tonight. Like I said, I love this team. I think they're the best team in the conference. But even you said that the local papers still say they could win out the rest of the season, and you're not making the tournament. So
if they don't win the tournament, according to geniuses, in the media down there.
It's a massive joke. You have to go out and demand the respect you deserve. And how do you do that? You just keep winning games. There's no letdown spot tonight because you're a great team. And great teams don't have letdown spots. They just come into the game with the mentality that they can win every single game. And that's what South Florida needs to do here.
Right. Couple of other points to what you're just saying. On the on the flip side, UTSA, they've had a bad year. Okay, there's no sugarcoating the year they've had. Their year could be made by knocking off the number one team in the conference. So
Yeah,
you got to watch out for that. You got to watch out toward the end of the season when you've got teams that have no reason to play. They are the ones that look up and they circle the game and they go, wow, okay, fine. We got a chance to knock off, a team that everybody's darling right now, except for those who are voting for the AP, teams. So yeah, I mean, you got to watch out for that. Michael Resco, who is the commissioner of the AAC, basically said that last year, if you can believe it, this conference, the AAC, was a one bid league, and you got to look at this, and I got to say, to me, I could see 3, maybe even 4 teams out of this conference.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people are overvaluing Memphis. They're one that's just. It was actually the loss to South Florida that has sent them in a spiral now.
Right.
They've lost something like 6 of their last 9 games or something, and something along those lines. And it just hasn't been good. And frankly, they're 7-6 in the conference, and you can put them as a ranked team. You can say whatever you want about them. The fact of the matter is the results aren't there. And I don't know how you can say Memphis is any better than South Florida is. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
No, the one team that, and I think we both agree, the one team that, and we'll put FAU in there. I mean, they deserve it.
Yeah.
But the one team that's impressed me doesn't get a lot of pub, and that's really Charlotte.
Yeah, definitely Charlotte. And that's the team. And again, this is why, it's so important South Florida just continues to win games and just play with that mentality, that disrespected mentality, because Charlotte, you're only 1 game above Charlotte and you still have to see them in their building to finish the season. So, you lose that game, all of a sudden you have the same conference record. So that's, not a great thing. You don't want that. And like I said, I think that Charlotte game is going to be their toughest game left on the schedule. That doesn't mean they can't win it. I said every game left on the schedule was winnable. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Charlotte is Charlotte and South Florida really are 2 teams no one's talking about that should be in the tournament. And it's unfortunate because one of them are probably going to get left out of the tournament, if not both. And we can't have that. I want to see this South Florida team in there. So they need to win. They need to keep winning games and win the conference tournament to get there. You just need to continue to prove people wrong. But absolutely, I think Charlotte is also a dangerous team, as you said.
Yeah, and I think that we'll have some fun watching these games as they unfold. There's only 5 more left, and so we'll see what's going on. All right. Speaking of what's going on tonight and this afternoon, I assume you've got some plays for everybody. Let's talk about what they can find, in the show box and your your take on what's going on today.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. I have one of my Premier League games started already, so you can't get that. But I do have 2 Champions League plays up for 3 o'clock that you can grab, as well as my MLS game of the month on tonight's lovely Miami versus Real Salt Lake game. So make sure you check that out. And I also have 5 college basketball picks up for tonight, including my Patriot League game of the year and my Missouri Valley Conference game of the year.
Sounds like a fun slate of action.
Yeah.
So there you go, boys and girls. And it's been a wild week so far. Tomorrow, Tomorrow we might dip our toe because this weekend begins spring training games that you can actually attend and watch. So maybe if you like, we'll talk a little bit baseball tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do some MLB.
Let's have some fun. Yeah, we're not going to do college baseball. So Tim Earl, if you're listening, no, we're not doing it. But we are going to have some fun with spring training and what happens when they come out of it. So got that going. Probably a little golf. They go to Mexico this week, so be an interesting situation there. Ball carries, by the way, if you're betting it, there's altitude here, so that ball is going to fly all over, the course. So keep an eye on that. And so there's some good stuff. There's going to be some college basketball over the weekend, which we'll touch on Friday. But maybe we'll just take a look at the good old national, pastime, Major League Baseball. So for Amadeus, I'm Jim. Everybody have a great day. Okay, we'll see you on Thursday.